And above all, thank you guys for braving the wet weather, heavy traffic to join us for another evening of Rice Talks. Uh, who here have been to Rice Talks previously? Can I see some show of hands? All right, so majority are first comer, first timer, yeah. All right, awesome. So before we get down to this evening's boiling topic, can you handle the heat? How not to get your F&B startup burned? Some quick facts about SME. Which I came across, taken from the Economic SME Consensus Malaysia. So SMEs distribution by sector. I mean, for starters, SMEs are the backbone of the economy. You guys know that. So SMEs distributions by sector. 90% comes from services, out of which 24.6% are from F&B services. So, but we're not here to talk about data statistics so much. What we're more interested to know is how this young enterprise build up their brand and make it successful to compete with some of the larger international franchise, and keeps you guys coming for another bite of burger, another bite of dessert, or another bite of Mexican taco. So before we get on to this panel discussion, I would like to give each of our panelists to briefly introduce about their startup, about their enterprise, what they do. If we can start with John.
Good evening, guys.
Good evening.
My name is John, and personally, I'm very humbled to be here because I wasn't originally from F&B background. I was from IT background. So jumping into F&B is a huge step, is a huge leap of faith for me. For myself, what do I do? My brand is called Sangkaya. So Sangkaya, as some of you already would have heard or might not have heard, it's people know it as coconut ice cream, whereby we don't really consider ourselves as an ice cream company, but rather as a coconut company. So what do we do? The Sangkaya philosophy can be summed up in 3 words. This is also part of our vision. The wow factor. The first W stands for wonders of coconut. So in essence, we are really ambassadors of coconut. And how do we came about this is I will share later on as we troll on into the night. The first reason, the very compelling reason why we started off Sangkaya is because we want to share the amazing health benefits of coconuts. The second philosophy of Sangkaya, which O stands for, is opportunity. Just as I've been given a lot of opportunities in life, I started Sangkaya as also a part of an entrepreneurship journey to give, especially a lot of younger people, the same opportunities to become entrepreneurs. The last W is standing for wholesome. What do I mean by wholesome? We want to create a culture, a brand culture, that reflects something which is truly local, which is Asian. And with that in mind, this is actually our core product. Looks inviting, that doesn't it? What we actually do is coconut ice cream that has no dairy, that has no cream, and that has no egg content. And it defies all logic of making ice cream actually. So what we like to think of ourselves as is an Asian creamery with that Midas touch. We are coming up with something very local that includes also teh tarik and kaya ice cream. So as the company progresses into yet another new product line, everything that we introduce will be related to coconuts, true to our vision and mission. Which means that we're also exploring right now into going into coffee. But how is this coffee related to coconut? You find out very soon. With that, that is my introduction about my company and the brand, which all of you will be hearing very soon. That's a promise. With that, I pass the mic to my friend.
Thanks, John, for the small teaser. Be sure to keep us posted what's coming up next. Next, I would like to pass on to move on to with Kiat to speak about myBurgerLab. Kiat.
Hi guys, quite a decent crowd today. Right, so my name is Kiat. I'm from BurgerLab. Some of you managed to come early and taste our burgers. For those of you who can't, sorry about that. But anyway, this is quick, brief background of ours. So there's three of us who started myBurgerLab. I'm from finance accounting background, and my other two partners from engineering. So like John, none of us are from culinary background as well. So it is possible, if some of you are wondering, you know. So when we started BurgerLab, it's quite a funny story because burgers wasn't the first thing in mind that we wanted to do. It just so happened my other two partners, they wanted to open an F&B place, and back then the best food that they know how to cook was burgers. Okay, so when we started, we actually rented the Red Bean Bag. I'm not sure some of you have been there. It's actually a place of One Train's partner. So Red Bean Bag restaurant in Publica. So we rented the space for dinner to do like testings, prior testings among friends and everything. Just to get feedback, that's how we tested our product. And then through a few sessions after we grew more confident, that's when we decided to open in 2012. And that's our philosophy when we started BurgerLab at the first place. Making the world a happier place, one customer at a time. And that would encompass three important components. For us is that three of us have actually experienced US, UK, and Australia service, the food culture and the service over there. Coming back to Malaysia, was a little bit disappointed by certain things here, after being through there. So we decided that, Malaysia needs a change. And what better way than for us to do that with our new upcoming F&B venture. So the three things that encompass this vision of ours is food quality, service, as well as pricing is value for money. Okay, so we believe there's a gap to encompass these three at one restaurant. That's why we started myBurgerLab. So we started in 2012, July. That's when we open our first outlet in Sea Park. Many people would ask us, why do you open only for dinner? It didn't intend to be that way, because initially demand was pretty high from the start. So production, we just have to cook the whole day. It takes us 1 year to keep up with production basically. And ever since then, we decided to stick through dinner. The other reason for that is also because of the people that we have. They are mainly from college and universities. So if we do open for lunch, it's pretty hard for us to get those quality candidates for our staff. So yeah, we only open for dinner, and our buns are black, if some of you have not known. Why so? It's because we added bamboo charcoal into our flour, our dough, and hence you have black buns. Okay. And right now, Sea Park and OG is running. We are opening our Sunway branch next week actually. So Subang folks, hope to see you guys there. Okay. And lastly, BurgerLab wouldn't be where it is today if it weren't for these guys. Okay, so some interesting facts. So mentioned about our service earlier on. We knew that from the get-go when we started, we wanted to create a different environment for customers, with different energy. So what better way than to have young, energetic, below 25 college university kids, to work at a sort of hipster burger joint. So that's when we started day one to have college and university students to come in, and we keep going ever since. And to this date, we have, I would say, more than 300 part-time students have worked with us for the past 2 years. So that's about you.
Thank you, Kiat. Godspeed and good luck with your opening of a third branch. Interesting to see the faces behind myBurgerLab, which I would like to get into after this. But first, the next on our panel, Irawan and Noreen from Curbside Cantina. So, Irawan?
Should go now? Alright. Hey guys, how you doing? My name is Tubby. Well, formerly I'm known as Irawan, but my family doesn't even recognize that name, so they call me Tubby for some reason. I am one of the co-founders of Curbside Cantina. Oh man, okay. Along with my furniture coordinated partner here, Noreen. We didn't plan this, by the way. Yeah, so I'm basically the guy that handles the heat on the truck. Yeah, like literally, as well as off the truck. I don't even know what else to say. Sorry, yeah. Next slide. Yeah, so.
Well, in case anyone doesn't know who we are yet, and we are pretty new to the scene. We're just over 3 months old. We're this big red 5-ton truck that you may have seen around. If you see it next time, you basically can't miss it. It's huge. When we built it, you know, we had the specs set out and everything. When we finally saw it ourselves, we were completely overwhelmed. Like, what have we gotten ourselves into? And as a startup, you'll probably have a lot of those moments. You know, what did I get myself into? But yeah, basically we're set up as a mobile kitchen. It's actually an extension of our catering company that we've been running
Since about 2006, for a while.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Next slide.
Yeah.
Excuse the horrible primary 6 looking fonts, but yeah. Yeah, who we are essentially, aside from those goofy looking people in the truck that you saw earlier, we like to think that, you know, we like to believe that we live in a perfect world and all that kind of stuff. We're constantly hungry, like literally, we love to eat. We're music fiends, we're crazy about music. All we do is just listen to music as well. Party animals, yeah, that pretty much sums it up. What else did we write there?
Adventure seekers.
Yeah, adventure seekers. We love to travel and eat as well.
And this is why when a couple of people who are involved with some things told us, like, hey guys, do you want to come to JB in a couple of weeks to, you know, park your truck at Jom Hebo? We said, yeah, why not? And we
That
drove
was
the truck.
just last week. Last weekend.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, and that was kind of an adventure, you know, driving that long range. But we'll do anything. We're up for anything. We're pretty organic about things, and again, that's how we got to building this truck.
Oh yeah, yeah. We do suffer from middle child syndrome. We both have older sisters. I don't quite know what that means, but we were really affected by it, and I think that basically translates into how we deal with situations. We deal with things differently, as far as, you know, when it comes to approaching our business, I guess, possibly from a unique standpoint.
Last slide, I guess.
Slide, all right. You want to take this one?
Yeah, so again, the truck being an extension of our catering company, we built it because so the kind of catering clients we get, you know, it's not usually the normal conference or the 200 people who need a buffet in their house. It's always something crazy, and we're always up for the challenge of setting up or popping up wherever the need arises. And so again, we were tired of having to carry things with us, you know, and figure out how we were going to heat things up with no heat source, you know, all those problems. And so this is basically why we built the truck, to offer an alternative solution to people who wanted to try different things. We're also, because of who we are, again, and this includes our team members, we've got a couple of guys who are part of our truck team here also, you know, everyone's just, you know, always ready to socialize, everyone's just out there, so we're very hands-on with everything we do. And also, the other reason why we built the truck is so that we can deliver really fresh food straight into people's hands. Yeah, so I think that's about as much as we can say right now about our enterprise. We thank you for listening so far.
Thanks, Noreen. And up next, we have Chiun from Smooshie Juice to talk a little bit about her enterprise.
Hi everyone. So I'm Chiun. So I started Smooshie Juice about 2.5 years ago to 3 years now. And it was started with my high school friend who's not here today. So you'll see some names later. I'm actually known as the donkey, she's known as the giant. I'm not that short, but she's actually very tall. So that's why she's known as the giant. So let's start. So this is the logo of Smooshie. So I'll just run you through how we all started. So the story of Smooshie is such that, no, that's donkey, there's giant. And one fine day we decided to go shopping. It was after a game of badminton. We wanted a thirst quencher. And this is what we came across in the supermarket shelf. Basically, there were very, very few options for pure fruit juices, healthy options. Most of the items there had things like concentrates. So concentrates are things that are actually just date juice. It's no longer fresh. You no longer get the nutrients from the juice. And you've got things like orange juice with cow milk compounds inside. I'm sure some of you may not have known that before. We've got all sorts of coloring. Some of the colorings are actually made from beetles, pulverized beetles. So this made me very sad, made both of us very sad. So, sorry, let's go back to the sad donkey. So we talked about a lot of things. We all know that Malaysians are not exactly the healthiest nation right now. So we thought of a few things and we came through a few options. And then this was a chart that was found last year. So when you look at actually the beverage market in Southeast Asia, there's only a very, very small percentage of fruit juices in the market. Obviously this year is a little bit different. We see a surge in cold presses and whatnot. So the chart would be a little bit different this year. So our aim was basically to make that chart a little bit bigger. So I guess this year we see that it's going in the right direction. I think some of us know that we are the most obese nation in Southeast Asia. Kids, forecasted 2015, 7.7% of children are going to be obese. Diabetes, I think in the last 5 years there were about 50% increase in the number of patients that were actually diagnosed. And besides that, there's about 50% more with not being diagnosed. So this is the birth of Smooshie. We started this off with the help of 3 lovely ladies from the Orang Asli village in Damansara Perdana. And it's still an all-women's team, not by choice, somehow it just happened. And this is baby Smooshie to adult Smooshie. Okay, so what is a Smooshie? A very quick one. I think some of you had it before, and we had some here just now. So it's a 250 ml bottle of fruit juices, no added sugar, no preservatives, no coloring, no flavoring added. It's lightly pasteurized, just so that it maintains as much nutrients as we can, and it lasts for about 7 days right now. Okay, so the main aim of Smooshie, we would like to actually continue to expand so that more people actually know what a healthy product is all about. Introducing Asian flavors, most of our fruit juices contain a lot of local fruits. We find that that's actually underutilized, things like dragon fruits, lemongrass, rambutans. There will be more coming out, and next year will be a different year where we'll actually have some new products launched, hopefully using a lot more local flavors as well. So I guess that's it. Thank you for listening to me.
Thanks, Chiun. Some additional info I would like to share about Smooshie is that, correct me if I'm wrong, yeah? Since its inception until today, it's an all-women enterprise, still is. Something to be proud of for all you aspiring women entrepreneurs out there. And they also hired the Orang Asli, which is near their HQ in Damansara Perdana. So giving back to the community in terms of employment. Now, what I would like to ask, starting with Chiun, is when you first started Smooshie in 2012, yeah? April 2012, you know for a fact Malaysian consumers are brand cautious, and you are competing against some of the larger international franchise, to be specific, for instance, Boost Juice. How do you get ahead of that curve? How do you deal with that skepticism, especially when, unlike Boost Juice, anyone have tried getting drinks from Boost Juice? So you know, like for Boost Juice, it's all prepared in front of you, whereas for Smooshie, it's all packed to go, it's all bottled. So how do you deal with consumers' skepticism?
So we went into this knowing that, you know, the market, being Malaysians ourselves, we know that the market's a very brand conscious market. It's not going to be easy to convince people, but we know that we have to stand the trial of time. With brands like Boost, it's a very good brand, and fortunately for us, I mean, we're just talking about Boost. Back when we first started, the owners of Boost Juice in Australia, Janine and Jeff, happened to walk past a bottle of Smooshie juice, and so they got in touch with us actually. We've been in touch with Soraya and Nick ever since, and we actually have a bit of a collaboration with Boost Juice. So in KLIA2, Publica, as well as Pavilion, they actually sell the bottled fruit juices there. So to answer your question about how to overcome the skepticism, we knew that we had to make our product very good, and we had to make it as pure as we wanted it to be. And over time, we found that people actually caught on to it. We didn't actually have a smooth ride all the while. We did start off quite difficult, especially the first year. So by the second and third year, we realized that things were catching on. So I think the patience actually paid off on our part.
All right, thanks. Next, I would like to ask Kiat on a similar questions. So like for BurgerLab, gourmet burger, right? So consumers out there, we know for a fact we have options. We can go to the norm, which is McDonald's, KFC, Burger King, and whatnot. How do you make sure people keep coming back to myBurgerLab and choose you over any other burger joints?
Testing. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Right. So, as Malaysians, we already, watch what we eat in the sense of quality. So knowing that, we knew that for our price tag, we gotta make sure the product is really good. That's why we end up making our own buns. We make our own patties. We oven roast our cherry tomatoes. We use American boiled cheese, which is higher content of milk. So things like this goes into our ingredients, our burgers. And we know that, again, like what Chiun said, quality is very important. That's usually how you distinguish a good quality product versus something like BMW versus a Proton, for example. But yeah, so in that sense, quality is very important to get people coming back. And on top of that, I think what we wanted to create is a different environment in the F&B space. So having this energetic, young people serving the community is something that we are proud of until today.
I have to agree with that. For all you ladies, if you've been to CPAC branch, it's filled with hot guys. Not that I'm into them, but yeah.
You put it up there.
So, for Noreen or Tabby,
Tubby.
I'm gonna throw a slightly different question because they represent the food truck business, and you know how food truck business is trending now. It's streaming almost everywhere, but unfortunately, truth be told, it comes with some challenges. To be precise, there is no licensing. There's no licensing being issued by DBKL up to today. How do you is this taking a toll to your business or for people who aspire to start food truck business?
So I'll address that. We didn't think it would take a toll on us because again, our primary business is catering, so we take private bookings as ours as a service. We did approach ABKL anyway because the thing that we wanted, the trouble with the catering service is that it's always inconsistent. Some months are great, some months are not, and then the next year it could be completely different. So we did want to create a more steady revenue channel for our enterprise. So we set out to serve, basically we're meant to serve lunch every weekday, and we thought that we could come up with a good product for that. Also another slightly healthier option for people. We're still trying to get there because when we first went to speak to DBKL, they were very encouraging. They gave us all the good points about how the food trucks really kind of serve the city well compared to a lot of vendors that are already there. But 8 months on, they never told us that you can't get permits. They did talk to us about basically coming up with alternatives because what you do is you have to apply for a specific location, and so they gave us the leeway of applying for multiple locations. Of course, you can't apply for any kind of license where you can move about any day and park anywhere you want, and that's fair because you have to think about anyone else using the roads or whatever. So they gave us the option to apply for, like I said, multiple locations. And then they've sort of been a bit discouraging about it until now. But the thing is, like what we're trying to say about who we are is that we're pretty proactive. We're not going to sit around and wait for this or wait for that solution. There's always a solution out there. I think that's important to know when you start up a business too. What's your goal? How you're getting there? There's plenty of different ways. You've just got to keep trying to find that way. Whether or not you have the energy to do it and all that's up to you. But so we found a few different avenues. So we managed to find a spot for the evenings to park now, and then suddenly now it's raining every evening. So some people do come out anyway to look for us, but I'm guessing after a while this is gonna start becoming a hassle.
All right, thanks. For John, for those of you who don't know, under the period of 1 year, John started his enterprise, Sangkaya, from push carts in night market, and now it's already becoming a franchise. Yeah. So, can you briefly tell us what's your secret ingredient, man? Under 1 year.
Well, the battery's off.
Well, I guess to be fair, what you say is correct, Zizul. We started off. It took us about 3 months to travel throughout Southeast Asia. Because just to add on to a little bit about Sangkaya is we wanted to start off not with ice cream actually at first. It was with, we had in mind kaya and toast, you know, like Malaysian favorites, roti and kaya and all that. That's how we got into touch with coconut, because kaya has got to do with has got a lot to do with coconut milk. We traveled around 3 months, me and my co-founder who's sitting down there, in a lot of places to mentor, to learn about the recipe. That is when we came back, and I came from a corporate background, just like Wicked. And for me to dive into F&B, which I also believe that is one reason of the wonderful turnout here this evening, to understand what are the perils of going into F&B before you make that leap of faith. With that, I believe in something which is very hands-on, and we started off with pasar malam. A lot of people would have this, probably would have this issue with face. We start off with pasar malam and all that, but rest assured that nowadays pasar malam in Malaysia is different, especially in Klang Valley. The traffic is great, which might also be a very good avenue for you if you ever decided to want to test out the F&B market before even thinking whether if you're ready for it. So we started off with pasar malam, generated quite a response from there, and then 6 months down the road, we went into a wonderful place. It's in Jalan Alor in Bukit Bintang. That was where a lot of it builds up our revenue. To be a bit more transparent about Sangkaya, we started off with just 30K, 30,000 ringgit as investment. And to generate something which is self-sustaining, moving into Alor was a wonderful experience for us. It's a great experience for us. To date, I'm very proud to announce that for the past 4 months consistently, we have generated over 100K. It's still a street food kind of setup. The setup is very simple, very humble. From there, actually, we gather a lot of inquiries to see whether if we are interested in franchising this out. This is despite the fact that we don't open up in a posh address, and the first person who actually took the licensing is the person who hired my CEO in my last corporation. So even with that very humble setup, he believed in us. Then after that, what we came out, the first outlet in shopping mall has actually opened now in Ampang Point. It's our very first brick and mortar.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So it's very exciting times ahead of us. Before end of the year, we are opening up another 6 brick and mortar outlets. It will be all over Klang Valley. So this year is the next 1.5 months is a really big month for us. But in addressing what your question is, Azizul, it takes a lot of passion, that's for sure, in F&B. It takes a lot of planning, and you need to know how to correctly bootstrap, especially when your resources are not too plenty. Bootstrap your way through businesses and set up a proper system. Because I was from an IT background, so I'm a big believer of systems. By systems, it means having a proper upkeeping of your product. Make sure that you have a good product. The product has to be there. Secondly, cover yourself legally and in accounting wise. Those are the very basics of business. But a lot of people, especially, they would think that F&B is something which is on cash term. So a lot of things are actually neglected. But just as with any other businesses, how did we grow this to a franchise is we fall back on the very basic of the business. start off with a wonderful product that it's hard to copy, that is unique. Secondly, know your facts legally, and also get a proper accounting system. Set up a system, a proper system, no matter how big or how small your business is. Start off with a good system by keeping track of your inventory and stuff like that. And of course, communications is very important. Until to date, we have spent literally zero on advertising. Everything is through word of mouth. So
we're about to charge you your first.
So communications is very important, and we are very big on social media as a platform to spread this truth. And lastly, the very most vital part of the business in every other businesses, as I believe that all the panelists here would agree, at the end of the day, regardless of the fame that you're getting, regardless of the recognition that you're getting, is all down to dollars and cents. It's all about having a good cash flow.
All right, thanks, John. So, my next question, I'm going to open up to the rest of you guys. I'm not sure, John probably going to self-repeat himself, but prior to starting up your F&B business, yeah, what are the 5 essential areas you guys look at? I've heard coming from different people, some of them they put location as top of the list, some put specifically what food product to offer, some put the concept behind it. So I would like to hear from, maybe perhaps starting from Kiat.
Can you repeat that one more time?
So before you started out your F&B business, what are the 5 or what are the top few key essential areas you look into before you decide, okay, this is it, I'm gonna do this?
Right, it's a very good question because this would help you save lots of time at the start. Okay, so being a finance accounting background, it's always conservative in that sense when you spend every dollar and cents. So when me and my partner were speaking about this idea, we were thinking, how do we not get the startup burn, right? Because F&B turnover rate in the sense of open and close in Malaysia is really high, if you look at the stats. So while I was in New York working there for a while, I stumbled upon this concept called the lean startup method. It's heavily used in the tech industry. So we figured, why not we adopt it in brick and mortar F&B? That's when we decided to rent Red Bag to do our product testings. And if you really want to create something really great, you gotta be honest with yourselves. So what we did was, we handpicked friends who can be brutally honest with us, in a sense where your product sucks. We're people who really want you to succeed. That's why they can be honest to you. You know, you don't want people to say, oh, okay, not too bad, you know, that kind of thing. Those are not valuable feedback. So, so we handpick, you know, people who came and can give us good, valuable insights. And then we tested also on the price point and stuff like that. So that's when we knew that we are comfortable to take a leap of faith to actually open up a brick and mortar. So that's number one, for you to test out your product and to test out with people, you know, to see what their actual response were. The key turning point for us was that people were coming and paying during the testing sessions, and then they go back. The next one, they bring other friends. So that's where you know that there's a referral there, and because they believe in our product, you know, that's why they come. Malaysians, we love to eat. You know, the place is not nice, we won't go back again. So also for us, we take that with great joy because we knew we were on the right track. That's number one. Number two, please over budget. Okay, if you get an open brick and mortar, please over budget. Okay, you end up facing contractor issues, you end up facing delays or whatever now. At least over budget 10% for that buffer. Okay, so yeah, just be smart about that. You don't run into cash flow problems and stuff like Number three is I have to say that my partners, they're really dedicated people. So, coming from the engineering mind and everything, every single detail is very important to them. So, putting a lot of effort in the product, that's number one. That's why if you go to our place, back then in 2012, actually the C Park went down as well. It's actually quite run down. I don't have beautiful deco like GB and Co or stuff like that. It's just simple kitchen, white walls and hand painted stuff. It's just keeping costs low basically. And fortunately it worked for us because we knew the bulk of our investments in equipment as well as the product material. So to be honest, our margin's not super high, okay? We are not fine dining. So we knew that we want to keep it affordable pricing in the sense of value for money. So we knew that providing good quality food at the price point that we would be comfortable with is the direction we wanted to go. And fourth, when you open your place, remember look for staff. Okay, we technically forgot about that point 1 week before opening. It's like, oh yeah, we plan out everything except our staff. Okay, what should we do? Okay, but fortunately that was during the summer months of the US and UK studies. So we had a few juniors in the unis that we could, ask, hey, you guys want to join us for a summer job and stuff like that. So yeah, fortunately back then we managed to get a number of them and things just roll on through our momentum since then. Yeah, so product, your due diligence there in sense of numbers, test out your market as well as staffing for all this. Yeah.
Thank you, Kiat. Folks, in the meantime, if you have any questions, do jot them down on your smartphone or piece of paper, because we will also randomly offer opportunity from the floor to throw questions. But before that, what about Curbside Cantina? What were the few key areas that you guys look into before decided, okay, this is it, this is what we want?
Okay, so the first need, well, I guess to talk about, again, going back to the catering business, or why we even get into any sort of F&B business, I guess we don't really pay attention to trends too much, but rather we look for those gaps. What's missing? Because we're such heavy consumers ourselves, we do kind of, we do a lot of different activities with different communities, so what's missing? The gaps are always kind of, staring at us in our face. So catering again keeps coming up for us. When we first started catering in 2006, we did just canapés, so just cocktail food, because literally there were only hotels that were offering the service of this kind of food, yet every brand, every business out there were throwing out product launches and seasonal stuff, seasonal events that required this kind of service. So we got in there really quick, started offering, basically canapés by the boxes. That did really well for a time. We moved on from that because we basically got another opportunity to seize another gap, and so this is what we've been doing. So again, suddenly with catering, I think the food truck idea did come in a little bit earlier on, a few years ago, just addressing the fact that this is something everyone should be really realistic about, is how much it costs to rent a space. It does make sense to, basically go mobile instead of being stuck in one location paying crazy rent in hopes that, basically 3,000 people will walk past your store every day, but it doesn't usually end up so. So this is one rule that I think learning from, especially people who've been in the business for a while, is like, whatever rent that you're about to commit to on a monthly, make sure you can make that rent in 3 days. With your business, you make it in 3 days, or you're gonna suffer.
Fortunately, we don't really pay rent to anyone with the truck. Sorry. Basically, so at least we didn't have to worry about that stuff. So with the truck, it was important to basically build something that could accommodate all that versatility that we needed. So we did, for example, like even the deep fryer that we have on board, we basically went with the best quality deep fryer that we could find. You know, some people might think it's a crazy investment to make. You can just get like a tabletop deep fryer for whatever. So this again goes back to what they're saying. Whatever you're about to put out, make sure it's the best version of whatever you're going to put out there. You know, whatever you're trying to make and sell for people, you know, it's just, I'm totally losing it here. I think, again, echoing with Kiat, you know, be honest about what you want to give to people. You know, don't just think that, okay, this idea is great, I'm gonna just put it out there and see how it goes. Test it out and really kind of, so I suppose with the truck, we actually tested out many different versions of what we do now. From June to December last year by throwing pop-ups. So we did pop-up restaurants in other people's restaurants. And every time we did one, we had a guest who invited us to another location to do another pop-up. So we did like 6 different locations over 6 months. And again, that's what gave us the confidence that we can do this, again, another alternative option for people, because we saw that people were willing to take on this alternative option. But it did take us 6 months to, you know, it's not like we just kind of put it out there and then, you know, we did test the market and stuff. So
Is it still ongoing, the pop-up store?
we haven't had much time to do it. We have done a couple of pop-ups with the truck right now. So a little bit more casual than what we used to do. So last year, in fact, it culminated with us being invited by the big group. Ben himself invited us into, there's a private section in his steakhouse at the Intermark. So he invited us to do basically, you know, to just basically take over his kitchen and play around in there. So we did a 2 nights worth of a supper club in his restaurant.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, we've done a couple with our truck, but I think right now people have suddenly have identified us with these tacos, which is still sort of our test product. You know, we still want to expand our menu a little bit more, but people are somehow so into our tacos that even when they come for the 2 pop-ups that we did, that's all they wanted. So yeah, we're putting it aside for now.
All right. And what about you, Wanshu?
So I think. So I think they've covered a lot of things like finance, passion, and whatnot. I'd just like to say that I think before you venture into something, you really need to know your market. Noreen has said that you need to know the gap. If there is a gap, then maybe you can approach it, but you also need to kind of look ahead of time and predict what might happen in the future and be prepared for what is to come. What we found was when we started, we were 2 young girls with very little experience and a little bit naive perhaps. We had to change very quickly because we started off with Berjaya Times Square, and that didn't work. After 8 months, we realized that it was not the right approach. And basically, we had to switch almost overnight, and then distribution started, and we find that that's actually the right way. So I guess have flexibility, be resourceful as well. You need to know all aspects of your business. Know as many suppliers as you can possibly get. Talk to people. The more people you talk to, the more you learn. I'm more of an introvert, but when it comes to stuff like that, you kind of have to put yourself out there and meet as many people as you can. So, yeah, I guess that's all to add on to what they've said.
All right. Before I move on to the next question, do we have anyone who would like to throw a question? All right, I see one. And this question is for?
Not particularly to anyone, but I have two questions that do you face any major challenges in food production, for example, in terms of food safety or standard? And my second question is there any plan for international market?
Perhaps.
Food safety? For the food safety part of things, I guess it's a matter of maintaining or like having a certain level of upkeep within your establishment when it comes to, you know, food safety and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, you'd have to do like, you know, the whole health and safety department kind of scanning and all that kind of stuff with like typhoid shots, all those kind of things. It's a bit of a hassle, but it pays off in the long run. You know what I mean? Like as long as you have a decent backbone of a team, you know, that you kind of manage, it definitely makes things a hell of a lot easier. Otherwise you just end up with a bombshell, and yeah, you just kind of end up dealing with it at that point. As far as international, sorry, it was about branching out internationally or something like that, right? I'm open to it, I guess. No limitations towards it, right?
What about Kiat?
Okay, you guys take that one.
For food safety wise, actually, to be honest, a lot of it we learn from Google. So, yeah, I mean, because nowadays to do a startup is actually not, in terms of information, it's available out there. 2 years ago when it started, it's actually harder to find certain information as compared to now. But then again, like what Tabi said about, you know, all this requirements, regulations from government in terms of typhoid jab and everything, those are the basics that you have to take. You have that food handler's course and everything. But there's one other tip that I want to share is that when it comes to food safety and food hygiene, right, please take note that you must set a very high standard for yourself, because your staff will follow whatever you do. So if you decide to cut corners, that's when it's very hard for you to control later on in the long run. Okay, so you gotta stay true to yourself in terms of what you want to serve customers. Okay, when you do that, you'll see that your staff will follow through. Anything that doesn't seem right on their side, you gotta catch it there and then and fix it. Okay, that's basically the basic sort of principle that we live by in terms of food safety and hygiene. As well as for international, I would say, you know, just hang on for a few months. You guys will probably know something. So yeah, thanks.
Before that, just to cut a little bit, can the audience tonight expect a special discount from myBurgerLab? Joking. So yeah, John.
Yeah, so in addressing your two questions, can I get your name then? Miss Irawan. Okay, to echo what Kiat has already said, especially when you're dealing with food, safety and hygiene is very, very important. It is of the utmost importance. With no denial, even though Google helps a lot, I think in recent years, this is especially very relevant to us in Sangkaya, because now as we're speaking, actually we are already finding a bigger production factory. And with that second step of, which is an investment for us, we are actually going for HACCP certification. We're trying to adopt the GMP adaptation, not to get the certification right away, but to prepare ourselves for that.
Sorry, can you elaborate a little bit about that certification?
Okay, GMP stands for Good Manufacturing Practice, and HACCP is like a health certification. So it goes in tandem together with. We are also aiming for halal certification. So with that in mind, it is of utmost importance that you keep to your hygiene and good practices. And what I realized even from Rice Talks and SME Core, when we guys as a food vendor was first invited here to the talk, the Malaysian government now is actually very proactive in giving out assistance in terms of resources and knowledge, for instance. A lot of people would think that it's a hassle to go through a consultant to get knowledge, wisdom. But as a matter of fact, you can turn to even the Ministry of Health. We have been in touch with the Ministry of Health and even with MIDA, and in recognizing what SME Core is doing, is a lot of awareness that's going out by the Malaysian government is actually reaching out. So turn to all these sources which consult for free actually.
All right. Wanchu, do you have anything to add?
So we deal with fruits, and we don't use preservatives. So they do, as we all know, if we don't keep the fruits well, they do rot quite easily. So yeah, it's very important for us. Refrigeration, extremely important. Cleanliness, very much like what we, Kiat and John, as well as Noreen have said. Similar to what John is doing, we're actually in the midst of setting up a factory that's going to get HACCP certification as well. We see that as a very important step forward. Yeah, because that's going to certify your product as being clean and also meets the standard for international export. So yeah.
All right, interesting. So I'm sure for small businesses, F&B, when you guys first started out, you guys have the plan, have the suitable business partners, everything is in check. The next deciding factor that could influence to make or break your startup is talent recruitment and talent retention. I think you guys could agree on this. So how do you deal with this? Can we start with Wanchu?
Yeah. So we've been
very lucky actually. We've hired two ladies, the Orang Asli ladies, and they're still with us. So I think training is very important. You need to train your staff very well. You need to keep your staff motivated. I mean, no doubt when we were in Berjaya Times Square, it's a retail outlet, we had very high turnover when it comes to retail. You have to always be prepared for backup plans. So every now and then, if you really don't have an option, that's when you actually have to go on, on site yourself. I'm sure they've all experienced the same thing as well. So I would put it down to two things: training as well as retention. When it comes to retention, motivation of the staff.
All right, Kiat, I would like to hear from you your myBurgerLab's approach to staff recruitment and let's call it talent retention.
Unfortunately for us, to a certain extent, you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Talent retention is, in a sense, really hard to get because of you have assignments season, you have exam seasons, it's a summer job kind of thing, and then after it becomes year 2, they want to go corporate and do internship, that kind of thing. So it's not the retention level that we would hope to have, but we have learned how to live through it and do a recruitment drive on certain seasons every year. But having said that, so one store we have average about 11 to 14 part-timers, and one store a month I have to do payroll for 40 headcount, 40. Just because they are mainly part-timers. Okay. So the question is, how do you then cultivate and maintain a high energy environment for that many headcount every day and every month? What we've learned at the start, fortunately, is that we knew that we have to have a very good alignment in terms of culture and in terms of the reason why we started BurgerLab. And this is as simple as starting with why. There's actually a book about that. And imparting this to your staff. The good news is they're young, so it's easy to train, and it's easy to impart all this in them. And telling them the vision of BurgerLab going forward and why we do everything basically. And we realized that, for our staff, when you actually tell them certain things, the reason behind of doing it, they actually understand better, they pick up better, and then they can execute better without, like watching them, micromanaging them 24/7. So starting with why and make sure you have a good culture is very important. Culture in the sense of not like, oh, every Friday night we go party, not that kind of culture, okay? Culture in the sense where you always seek for high performance, excellence standards. You don't have people who go behind and talking shit about people. It's anything to do, just handle it there and then straight up. So these are the other small cultures, and not so much of the Friday night party drinking or wear your own dress code or whatever stuff like that. These are more the tangible cultures. And when you have these two in place at the start, it's very easy for you to create a ripple effect in the long run. So if you want to start any F&B, my advice is do that, because the people is the representation of your brand. It's just as simple as that. Okay, so impart this into them, and you'll go a long way. Apart from that, just make sure you do your interview properly. That's all.
Thanks for the great insights, Kiat. Before we get down to John, if we can get some insights from Noreen or Ravi.
I think earlier Kiat said about you don't forget about recruiting people. Don't leave it till too late. So we've done a couple of different things from the catering. We actually did have a restaurant as well, and it was not a good time in terms of really keeping staff or keeping a team together. And we learned from that this time, and just months before, as soon as we actually set the truck to be built and we had 3 months, we already went out looking. I think you'll know the kind of people you want to work with you, especially in the truck. It's a compact space. We've got to all get along. We did look for people. I mean, we don't necessarily look for people with experience, but we do look for a certain kind of personality. We did find our staff who are pretty versatile also, that they can eventually take the heat and stuff like that. It's still only a few months old, so we don't know how long this is gonna take. But the other thing, this guy really knows what he's talking about. The other thing, you have to keep the energy levels up all the time. You kind of almost have to keep them entertained all the time, and they can vouch for what I'm saying. We've got our truck boys in the back, and
Yeah, they're looking bored.
They're really great guys. They're up for anything, and again, it's important that they have that personality. It's gonna happen anyway, the turnover and stuff like that. I think just don't be too scared to give people a chance. Also, we're all about giving. We basically have someone who used to work for us years ago. We gave him another chance, and there's also something to look out for. It doesn't matter how old someone is. You can kind of see that there's slight maturity in people. It doesn't matter what they've been through in life, but I think that helps also. That little spark of maturity that they might have, that they would respect what you're doing, and if anything does come up, at least it's something that can be tabled, it can be discussed. Everyone, sometimes some of the problems that staff go through are just personal problems that they just can't manage themselves, and who knows, that might be something that you can help them with or something, but whatever it is, if you look for that slight maturity in people, I think then they'll be able to at least discuss it with you, and you have time to prepare yourself for, whatever options you need to come up with to deal with the situation.
All right, thanks, Noreen. John?
Okay, before I go on answering this question, actually you have raised up a very good concern, because in the F&B industry, staff, or rather talent retention, is very crucial. And I believe before we start off with this, I had a prep talk with Kiat. I thought that myBurgerLab, even though I've never tasted myBurgerLab,
That's a scene!
I know. Even though I've never personally tasted it, which I will do so soon. I have always heard of this legendary working culture that staffs the working culture of myBurgerLab, which gets a very good reputation, because one of my ex-friend who is an architect in London. sorry, my old friend. Okay, this friend of mine, probably some of you would have known him. We grew up as childhood friends. Then, of all sudden, he's just missing for 10 years. Then he came back on Astro and came out in MasterChef. So after he left MasterChef, he worked with myBurgerLab. So he had some thoughts on the working culture of myBurgerLab, which I thought is really exemplary for a Malaysian F&B culture, which is something to adopt. So kudos to Kiat and myBurgerLab. In addition to what all the panelists have already addressed, I would like to say one thing is, to add on to that, attitude is something which is very important. Attitude precedes talent, as per se, or experience, or age, or for your last round salary, for all that matters. And the second thing is, the way how we did it is, there's a reason why I left my corporate job. It's because as a corporate person, as a staff, I don't really get involved with a lot of the decision-making part of the company or the brand culture. So one of the things that we're trying to adopt in Sangkaya is we get our staff to get involved in some of the decision-making as well. Not the big ones, but get them involved in all steps, get them in on a daily basis. And secondly, we wish to, like I mentioned earlier, one of the culture of Sangkaya is to cultivate entrepreneurs. By doing that, we also remunerate a lot of our staffs in certain ways which are not of the industry norms. And how do we do that is we encourage a lot of innovation, and we buy into a lot of their ideas and how to actually implement it. So that's from my part, a bit to add on to what the other fellow panelists have added on.
All right, thanks.
Can I just say one?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, speaking of John's attitude in terms of talent, just to share you guys, 95% of our staff are not from culinary art background. So if you're expecting going to BurgerLab and chefs and all are cooking, too bad. they're not. So the attitude is there. They are willing to learn and can be trained. It's not too hard. We're not doing, what's that cooking method called? But anyway, we're not doing like high class cooking, so it definitely can be trained. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Kiat. Moving on to the next question. Does intellectual property has a place in F&B industry? What measures have you guys done to safeguard your brands? I would like to start with Chiun, with Smooshie.
It's a good question actually. So when we first started, we didn't think much about IP and whatnot, right? So it so happens that a friend's father is a lawyer and he's an expert in IP. So one of the first things that he told us was, can you please make sure you get your logo trademarked? So that was something that we did years ago when we first started off. So now actually the logo is trademarked. In the short term, I think when you first start off, you may not actually see the importance of trademarking your brand. But in the long run, if you are actually going to look ahead, like we always talk about planning ahead, looking ahead, it will be a worthwhile investment to actually have it trademarked. But I would say you have to see your ROI lah, track it so that you know that it will pay back in the future. So yeah, I think it's very important that you have everything trademarked, your recipes and all that are taken care for very well, put aside, kept secretly. Yeah.
All right, Noreen, what about Curbside Cantina?
Yeah, I think the there was always a suggestion of trademarking, especially, it's your original idea. You'll be kind of ticked off if someone just takes even a part of it and, God forbid, does way better than you do. But it's kind of a long process to do that stuff. So the easiest way, the safest way is whatever it is, like even when you're starting a business, you shouldn't even be afraid to take on funding, for example, because if you're going to start the business, you better make sure you're dead serious about it. And if you're not, if you're scared that you can't pay a bank back, then you know what, don't start it, So I think, whatever you do, again, from your product to your brand, it's got to be really, what you want to put out there, something original. And so as soon as you start your business, make sure everyone uses social media, so make sure you've got everything out there, you've got your page or whatever, and that helps a little bit in terms of like your presence was already there from a certain date or something, so it does deter people from kind of replicating your stuff and putting it out there. So I think that's one way to do it, just have your social presence out there just to safe keep your brand.
Okay, what about Kiat with myBurgerLab?
Yeah, so trademarking name, it's the usual suggestion. I technically food, recipes is so diverse everywhere in the world, so you can't technically IP your recipes. But if I'm not wrong, there are certain, in the sense of product level names that you can trademark apart from your brand, like McNuggets or Big Mac. Yeah, Big Mac is a trademark name. So those can be done, if you have those. But like what she said as well is that as long as there's a certain level of proof that you can use if you are sort of markedly known before you apply for trademark, if there's a certain infringement, as long as there's proof like newspaper, social media and stuff like that, that's at least a certain basic level of safeguarding for you to have. But yeah, that's so much so for IP, for F&B.
So in answer to your question, Azizul, the answer is very, very, very straightly honest, as in yes. Yes and yes. You need to do the necessary to safeguard your brand. More so, especially if you have big ambitions for it in the near future. And to add on to that, I think it's also, if you're targeting to start small, it's always good to have your own USP, your unique proposition. Yeah.
Unique selling point, yeah?
Yep. And to always get a cult following, for instance, myBurgerLab appeals to students. And Smooshie, they have a health conscious, probably they have a segmentation of customers. So in that sense, whenever you have a cult market to that, whenever people think of Sangkaya, we market ourselves as the ice cream vendor that perpetually have a long queue. So apart from, before thinking into investing in IP, intellectual property agents as in the properties of it, build a brand culture for yourself first. Build a brand culture for yourself, and you will know that through your sales revenue and all that, when the time has come, when the time is right, do invest in a trademarking of your brand, for instance. But as an IT person, still geeky inside my heart, we started off, like I mentioned, I'm big on system. So we started off Sangkaya, the very first thing we did was to apply for a trademark.
All right, thanks. Now I would like to open up the floor for Q&A. Okay, it looks like we have the first one. Let me start with you, sir. Juan?
That's quick.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for all the insight provided by the panelists. I actually got a very specific question to Chiun, sorry. Regarding, I noticed the Smooshie bottle, it actually isn't, recently with the birth of all these cold press producers and all the small juicing companies that have been popping up, right?
I've actually taken notice that a lot of the bottles, in comparison with those available on shelves, I think there's some regulation behind disclosing the health contents and some sort of certification for the bottles. But I noticed that all these, I would call them micro juices, don't have any sort of labels on the bottles. Is this a government regulation thing, or is it any sort of concern for yourself or the industry itself?
Sorry, the first part of the question.
It's just one part, whether it's a government regulation thing for it,
Yeah.
or doesn't apply to these non-shelf based bottles, or will it pose any threat for any other the bottlers around?
I think in general, this when it comes to a lot of pop-up, we see a lot of independent food vendors nowadays, right? So the government isn't clamping down on individual food vendors. I mean, most of them are doing it from home as well. So it's not really a concern. If they're doing it from home, the government isn't clamping down on them. We like to think that things are done right. I mean, so far we haven't had any problems even when it comes to like cold presses and whatnot. It's not a problem, but it will become a problem when you want to get into supermarkets and all that. So when you want to export and all that, you're going to have to make sure that your product is tested by US FDA standards. That requires some lab testing, obviously. You have to get HACCP. You need to make sure that you abide by a certain ISO standard as well. And obviously the food labels will have to be properly done. So, you know, if you're looking ahead into those kind of things, then yes, you will need to get those things done. Yeah. But independent food vendors, I would say the government isn't clamping down strictly on all those things. I'm sure, I was told that it works very differently in the US, but in this country, not so much.
All right. Thanks, Joan. Thanks, Chiun. You have a question, yeah?
Hi, my name is Andy. This question is due to all of you guys. How do you come up with your name, your business name? For me, actually, I like especially myBurgerLab, that's Malaysian, and then makan thing, but suddenly white a lab. And Sangkaya, I love it because it's a Malaysian name, but it's a hit product. My friends, my colleagues always like to post on Instagram, oh, I sudah pergi makan, saya betaling jalo. And Curbside Cantina, I don't know, it's a very long name. How do you guys come up with, maybe you can start with Manchun.
Okay, so
Very good question. Very good question.
so our name is Smooshie. It's really weird. We had all sorts of names, and actually our logo, if you dissect the logo, it's actually SMOOSHIE. Coincidentally, my partner who's not here, she happens to be an ex-architect, not ex-friend. An ex-architect, so she does most of the drawings, when it comes to the art stuff, she does that. So Smooshie to us is a combination of something like a smoothie. Reminds us of the word smoothie, and that's pretty much how we came about it. And she likes cute stuff. So Smooshie is kind of cute. So yeah.
My turn? So how we came about naming the truck Curbside Cantina, I actually wanted to call it the Tired Feast. Feast on tires, essentially. But my wife, partner being, wives are always right? So she came up with a better name because essentially our catering company is called Cantina Moderna. So it basically felt suitable that the truck be named Curbside Cantina as a continuation and a mobile continuation towards the catering company. Yeah, it sounded way better than my name anyway. So yeah.
Definitely a good name. For us, so burger was what we are selling. Lab was because my other two partners came out with the name, so it's relating back to engineers, right? And it's always that experimental process that we had at Arabian Back. So lab came in that concept. And then the word my actually has two meanings. One was that Malaysia, I guess one. But there's actually another subtle meaning behind that actually we didn't really tell a lot of people. Is that when we start off, we know that we wanted to be a community brand. Okay, in the sense of serving a more personal touch towards the community. And hence, that's why our location are not in the malls and more of like community areas. So, you know, if I would tell John, hey guys, why don't we go to myBurgerLab? And John will be asking me, is that your burger lab? In that sense, so there's a personal touch toward my to it. And then staff, you know, when they say that, oh, I'm working on myBurgerLab, it has that ownership sense to that. So hence, kudos to my partners who came out with the name. Yeah.
For Sangkaya, actually it's like a perfect business for me. So apart from spreading the benefits of coconuts to the public, apart from building up, at least aspiring to build up entrepreneurs, it's actually also the start of a love story blossoming. My co-founder is also, she's both my partner in life as well as in business. So in the months to come, we are actually sponsoring Frida Liu, the DJ in BFM, because I thought that she's coming up with a very interesting story about how love actually also can manifest in business, which is not all together dollars and cents. But back to the question, how we came up with the name Sangkaya, right? Sangkaya is actually an acronym for my partner's name, which is Sangrida Kaya. That is the first part. Secondly, we thought that we really want to reflect a very Malaysian taste out of it. But Malaysian-wise, it's pretty much, I don't say Chinaman, but maybe a bit kiasu. Sangkaya is a breakdown of the word sang. Sang like as in sang kancil, and kaya is kaya as in kaya. So yeah, it's an auspicious name that means it will lead us to riches, to the path of wealth.
Excellent. We have one question. Elvin. Hi, good evening, guys. Thanks for this talk. I have just one question. It's investment related. So, I mean, it'd be great if I can ask everyone, but maybe because of time, I'll just maybe post this till we get, since you are finance background and of all the business, maybe yours seems to have the biggest initial investment because it's a brick and mortar. I mean, I might be wrong, but that's what I'm guessing. When you determine the investment amount, after minusing out all the fixed investment, the beginning part, and also after determining your monthly overhead, you estimated it, how much in terms of month do you prepare before going into the business? Like for example, if I don't make any money for 3 months, I can last for 3 months. What is a safe number? Thanks.
It's a bit technical, okay, so hopefully all of you can able to understand. It depends also on where you're heading in terms of location. If you're in the mall, in terms of your months of runway, should be even more. People say 6 months. Those figures I don't know where they pluck up from, to be honest. But to us, when we started, so we started initial capital 220,000. It's actually pretty relatively low because we kind of again bootstrap on our decor, and we got not pretty good equipment, so that no all the basic ones can do touch and go, then can already. Because in our business plan, we were estimating 180 burgers for lunch and dinner for the first 6 months. We did 180 in one night since day one. So that kind of blew our mind off. So when we started 220, we actually technically I think left was only 10,000. And if you take that into consideration, probably lost us 1.5 months. Okay. But having said that, we knew that we had to make it work like that sense, But one important thing is this: for those of you who have not done any business, okay, and planning to go into F&B, okay, number one, your capital initial layout is a lot, okay. If you're gonna ask investment from someone else, please at least put 1,000 ringgit into your business. It makes a lot of difference if you don't put in money versus you put in. Number two, okay, be ready to not pay yourself if you have to. Okay, it's a very big thing. Be ready to not pay yourself if you have to. Okay, number one, your staff comes first. Okay, take care of them, they'll take care of customers, business will come. But be prepared if you have to, lah. Okay, and please don't think that you're starting your own business can take like 10K salary, you know. That's, I don't know, from what planet now. Okay, but on Earth, you know, you just gotta be prepared. Alright, thanks.
All right, thanks. We have another question here.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I have a question for everyone. And I think it was mentioned briefly that to not take note of food trends. But in Asia, I think that's quite a big thing, that there is a trend that lasts for maybe, I don't know, 2 to 5 years. Either it's burgers or, I know all of you are kind of leaders in your own respective product category, but what would you do to address things like diversification and when maybe at some point in the future the food trend diverges to something else? How do you approach that?
I think as far as trends go, I think that's a lot of the trouble that kind of either makes or breaks a business, essentially, most of the time, because a lot of people, you know, people do identify trends very quickly because, you know, the internet or like what's surrounding them at the time. When they do decide to kind of jump on that trend, they mainly pretty much just focus on that trend. And I think the thing that they miss out on is essentially the product that they need to be focusing on and not essentially the overall trend that's being brought by it. And basically, you know, to deal with diversifying and all that kind of stuff, you don't necessarily have to diversify as long as you identify that, okay, this is the trend that I want to jump on, and this is what I want to be doing, you know, 24/7 my entire time. As long as you're real about it and you put out a really solid, like, you know, solidly focused product, you wouldn't have to worry about, you know, trying to identifying other trends and jumping on that and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of what most of the businesses that don't make it do. You know what I mean? So, and to honestly put it to you, we're not, you know, leaders with the food truck. We're only 14 weeks old. But, you know, I mean, I think it's just a matter of somehow, you know, Rise Talks have identified that, you know, we're essentially putting out a decent product, and, you know, we're just real about what we do. You know what I mean? We're not trying to like flare it up too much with, like, you know, theatrics and all that kind of stuff. It's just, yeah, just be real, you know.
Well, Sarah, I do have a slightly different take on that, because the very basic of it is trends do come and go. So it's whether or not if you jump on the bandwagon. Now I realize that not quite planned. I learned from my operations manager that now the current trend is moving on to ice cream, especially in Malaysia. Then you see a lot of big brands started coming in from Korea, from even from Walls and all that. Trends will come and go, but your brand doesn't. But at the same time, I like to take this analogy of, because I love music, the same bands are the same people who continue to make it years after year of music, like for example the Beatles. They change with the time, but essentially the brand is still about the Beatles themselves. They have their own personality. So probably 10 years from now, Curbside Cantina will move on to, you can't know for sure in F&B. Probably it will diversify into like another specialized menu, for example. But the brand is still essentially about Curbside Cantina, for example.
comes to trend, I always think the media does a good job with that. You know, they hype it up so much. You know, but at the end of the day, it's really about the core business. And if you're going into, let's say, a genre of food, because the fact that it's popular, hence you're going in. That's why you have to be clear with your starting with why. Whether you're going in because everyone's doing it, hence I'm jumping on the wagon, or it's because I know I can make a better product in terms of ice cream, street food, burgers, juice. If so, you stay true to that core value, you'll go a long way. And you know, when you do that, people will feel it, they'll take notice, you see the reviews coming in. It's not so much about, okay, everyone's doing it, I'm doing it, you know. It's not about also first mover, it's about what the core vision is. You know, if you're clear about that strongly, essentially, you know, you get through the long run. You know. And diversifying doesn't have to be in the sense of product, it could be just diversifying in terms of distribution channels. And like what they do in terms of catering and non-food truck, it's basically a different distribution channel. But the core is still there. Yeah.
So, very similar to what they said, you have to build a very resilient product. Yeah, trends will come and go, but you need to make sure that your product is good enough to withstand the test of time, and that people will remember you as the product that is that represents the vision of what you have in mind. In addition to that, I think over time you need to be prepared to innovate your product, keep your product fresh as well. So you do need to, like I said before, know what's going on around you, and make sure that you understand what the market is, what's happening in the market.
Alright, thanks. We have another question, yeah?
Hi. Can you guys touch a bit on funding, perhaps some challenges that you guys face sourcing for funding, and perhaps things that we need to look out for when we look for funding?
Yeah, I'm not sure if SME Corp has, you know, anything, but do check with them later on. But one thing about us is that I hate creating out business plans in the sense of drafting and going pitch and whatever not. Because at the end of the day, at least from my experience with F&B, you know, it takes more than pitching about ideas or concepts to work. You know, it's just so many variables. Funding, yes, it's always a big issue in F&B because it's a very high capex business. It's not like technology companies where you can start off very small in scale. So for us, from our experience, what we did was we took pharma money, father-mother loan. Okay, father-mother loan. Basically, if whatever money that we have, we kind of invest in it. So 3 of us started, but we have a number of other smaller shareholders as well who believe in us at the start. So in terms of funding wise, what I want to say is that because now technology is so advanced, right? Like what Sangkaya does, you know, it's 30K to start a cart and everything. There's always ways to get creative to start a business at a very small scale to make money. When we want to open a restaurant, I always pose this question to my partner. What's the difference between a char kway teow auntie in Penang, there's long lines every single day, versus you know, you open like a 500K restaurant with nice decor in Bamsa and you have no line. What's the difference? You gotta go down to that core level of detail to know. Doesn't mean that you spend few $100,000. In fact, you know, food truck's not cheap as well. You know, you gotta spend few $100,000.
It costs more than your startup.
Yeah. That's what I did. Yeah, I know. So it's actually, you gotta know what's the core, and there's a lot of different ways to get creative about it. The reason why we decided to do a leap of faith is because we spent under 10K and breaking back. And we know that during the last 3 sessions, we got the money back in the sense of that 3 sessions, we made some money from the amount of people there. So we know we're on the right track to make profit already in that sense. Yeah, so there's always a smart way to go about. Technology now is great, you know, there's a lot of ways to go about doing this. Yeah, and with social media something. In terms of if you're asking for external funding and all, that's a whole new different story. But all I want to say is, if you look for partners, okay, if you're going to go business with partners, make sure that you have your level of trust in there with them. Okay, that's the basic core fundamental of any partnership. It's not about how much money I put in, how much money you put in. It's just about trusting. That's it.
Yeah, I guess just two things to look out for if you're not coming up with your own cash. There's two things that you can look out for now. You know, like even like all these, what do you call these, micro juiceries? Whatever. Anyway, there's so many platforms now. It doesn't have to look or feel like a single thing. You can test your market out by just being creative. There's tons of platforms for pop-up spaces and all that, and that's a great way to not only showcase your product to customers, it's also to showcase to investors, and that's exactly how we did it. Our 6 months worth of pop-ups, it was a lengthy time, but again, we never spent any money on paying rental anywhere. It was just one that led to another. Again, like she mentioned, just meet people and talk to people, and it's a great time for that right now. Everyone's open to talking and all that. It's not like 10 years ago when everyone would just, be tight-lipped about every detail about their business. So just go out there, be creative, and this, yeah, like I mentioned, the 6 months worth of pop-ups that we did yielded us an external private investment, for example. The other thing is, I've been told that there are actually, you can't go to the banks, no way, unless you're a few years in. You can't be a new startup and go to the banks. They're not going to lend you. I've even had an argument with a Bank Negara official. But there are plenty of agencies now, and the tip is these agencies don't even know how to reach you. So they're having as much trouble as to reach you as you might be to reach them. So right now there is this layer of middle people who are helping you and the agencies meet right now. So look out for that, I would say.
Yeah, if I can add up a little bit on that, that's what we are here for.
Finally.
So yeah, I mean, jokes aside, if you're looking for grants, funds, among many other programs, SME Corp Malaysia do offer that. Just head down to their ORC or One Referral Center, where they can give you some business advisory services to plan, grow, or even come up with an exit strategy if there's somewhere in the pipeline. But anyway, we have another question from that side. Yeah, Alex?
Hello, I'm Melmi. I would like to address this question to either one of you. As you can see, the uprising number of food bazaar in Malaysia. In your opinion, does it help you to promote your F&B product? In what way also?
Okay, I'll start off with that. Most definitely, food bazaar to help. In recent few months, we see a very active amount of food bazaars going on, and it definitely does help. So, like to reiterate what's been mentioned, it's great exposure for your brand, and at the same time, you'll be speaking to a lot of people. It's not only all about business. It's about networking and all that. You never know the same time that you meet a potential partner, or a staff, or even an investor who believes in your product.
Definitely great, man. In fact, that's the best way to get your product exposed at a very low cost. I'm actually quite amazed by the amount of food bazaars that's been going on for this year. And I would very encourage you guys to leverage on them.
Yeah, beyond just exposure, food bazaars or those food events, especially that's going on every weekend now, is pretty much where we get to operate. So it works out really well for us. And I think that's part of the confidence of why we built the truck now also, is because I guess it's just like any time in history when a system gets a little oppressive, and I'm pointing to, again, the high rental of like really ridiculous, like there's a neighborhood mall in One Kiara. So again, you're not going to get 5,000 people walking past your shop every day, and they charge 18,000 ringgit for 2,000 square feet. Just Who's paying that? Someone's paying it right now, but not for long. So whenever it gets like this, there's always this underground stuff that will happen, and eventually these underground things will actually surface, right? And you can see that the food bazaars, all these food events. I think this is the way of the future, and this is why we're so confident to be doing what we're doing right now. Is because again, there's so many different ways of doing it, and I think this scene is really encouraging right now for all sorts of reasons.
So years ago when we first started, Food Bazaars was actually a platform that we used very frequently to market our products. And we found it was very good for a few reasons. Firstly, low cost. Secondly, you have direct interaction with your customers. Thirdly, you're able to, like what John said, you're able to interact with people, you're able to meet more people. Sometimes you come across suppliers, you come across potential investors and whatnot. I think it's a very good platform to test your product as well. If you're thinking of starting up, there is no better way to test your product with a very low startup cost. So yeah, that was how we started, and we're glad that the food bazaar thing has actually grown.
All right, thank you. Before we head down, before we wrap up, I would like to open the floor for one last question. Whoa.
3 last. All right.
3 last then. Let's start with. Sorry, these guys are in high demand. Let's start with you.
Thank you. This question is addressed to Wake specifically because myBurgerLab is a brick and mortar store, and I actually saw the slide that we said that myBurgerLab is actually opening its 3rd branch. So, when a business grows, it grows geographically. It opens new stores, but the common worry that comes with F&B is that the food at other places suck compared to the original branch. So what keeps you worried, or what keeps you, perhaps in another way of looking at it, energized when you actually expand your business? And if there are other people who are actually looking to do the same, what are the lessons that you can maybe share? Because you've already opened the 2nd one. So that is basically my question.
Hello. Okay, number one, I would say you gotta get mentally prepared. I guess it's very, very important. That's also one of the reasons why we only grew, in a way, 1 store at 1 year. If you compare to a lot of F&B giants out there, are considered actually very slow in terms of growth. Very, very slow. And we know one of the reasons why growing at what we're doing, 1 store a year, is mainly also because of consistency issues. Again, 1 store, we have 40 headcounts a month, and people come and go every 2 to 3 months. There's a lot of training that needs to be in place. So I would say that at the start, getting the system right and consistent took us a year plus to get used to things. And then when we knew that, we decided to try the 2nd store and see if it is duplicatable. And then from there, we work out a lot of kinks and everything, and now we're ready for the 3rd store. So level of training and level of systems and all is very important. Okay, drinks are much easier, but in terms when it comes to cooking like ours, it's actually very complex. Why the reason I say we're mentally ready is because number one, you got, in a way, I know we want to ensure consistency, but there's a fine line between knowing to create excellent product and service versus striving for perfection. Okay, because when you deal with food at the end of the day, right, you can't be perfect 100% of the time. Okay, there's bound to be complaints on and off. Alright, question is how do you deal with that? That's very important. So that's why we knew that customer service recovery was also very important. In a way, you would say that McDonald's can do it. Yeah, they can do it because they have very high equipment and everything, and they're very consistent. I have to say, very consistent throughout. But then again, when it involves cooking and stuff, it tends to create that variety of things that we can play around with in terms of product choice and stuff like that. So invest in training, invest in creating your culture, invest in the people, and also take time to really figure out how to streamline things and make sure that it's duplicatable.
All right, thanks. Can we have just now earlier on to you, Ira, the second?
Hello. Hi, this is directed specifically to Curbside Cantina. Just quickly, I know you've only been in operation for a short time. Do you vary your menu? Do you change your menu? And what can you describe a typical day of, working in the trade?
Yeah, take the heat.
Yeah, take it, Tommy.
Well, essentially we're only 14 weeks old, so with the menu, at the moment we're still kind of dialing down on, more like shortlisting, basically a number of items to kind of like finalize into a menu of maybe about 10 to 12 items, I would say. Yeah, we still haven't quite, ended that experimental phase yet, but each night that we go out, we'll probably have about 5 to 6 items on the menu. I mean, we get surprised looks as to how small the menu is, but after a little while, people take a look at the truck and they'll essentially understand that it's not a massive space. They can't be churning out like a whole mama variety sized menu, in such a small space. A typical day on the truck. Hype. It is fun. I'd say it's very hot, very busy, very fast paced. I'm the one that's basically churning out the food before it reaches the customer. I'll dish out probably 150 pieces of tacos like an hour, which is pretty nuts because after I'm done 2 hours, I just pass out at home. But yeah, it's pretty fast paced, I'd say.
So, I mean, do you work only at night time?
Right.
You get up at 9 o'clock at night?
Well, I mean, we're up actually at like 8:30 in the morning because we run the catering side of things as well. But yeah, for the moment, we're only operating at night because of restrictions or like permit constraints that we're kind of going through right now. But eventually, we'll try and we're trying to work through running to lunch as well.
Just to add, even though we're out on the curb, say for 3 hours on any evening, we're talking about like 3 hours straight of orders and us cooking and churning it out. So that does take some planning, and it's almost like we're catering every day. So we do have everyone come in, basically the truck team consists of 4 of us, and we do come in about 3 to 4 hours earlier before we go out, and we actually, repeat every day this plan. Basically, we set it up from start to finish exactly what we have to even load the truck on a daily basis, right? With everything, we can't forget either because there's no back storage of like 2,000 forks or something, and we do mismanage that a little bit sometimes. It's like, oh my god, thank god we have skewers or something. So it is important to note that even though it's 3 hours of cook time, that also means an additional 4 hours of prep beforehand, and all that communications, and 4 hours prior to the 4 hours prep time, we're usually busy picking up supply. So we go out and purchase everything ourselves, again, because for us, I guess for some people it's the opposite. When it's really something really expensive, you keep the quality really high. But for us, because it's a reasonably inexpensive thing that we're putting out, it means a lot more people are coming up to our windows. We're reaching out to more people, and we want to make sure that we send out the best thing that we can again, and we try to control every part of that process. So we go out, buy everything ourselves, make sure everything is in order, and then we start cooking. Thank you.
All right, I know there was a third question, but because due to time constraint, perhaps we can take it offline. But I would like to ask this from each of our panelists tonight, very quickly, to all of our audience out here. Can you handle the heat? How not to get your F&B startup burned? very briefly, what's your take on that? What advice would you share with the audience tonight? Let's start with John.
Okay, this is especially very important because heat goes against ice cream. So. Yeah, but getting down to it, the summary of it all is, actually before I pass on the mic to Wicked, I'd like a raise of hand from the audience. How many of you are not F&B owners as of now? Can I get a raise of hand, please? So the reason why you're here tonight is to know more about F&B because you're interested to go into F&B?
Yes.
All right, okay. In that case, get a good system. Like the first thing that I've mentioned earlier on, get your products right. But first of all, before anything else, get your mindset correct. F&B is not what you see it is. At the end of the day, all the panelists seated down here, myself included, we are getting some sort of recognition in a sense. But that is just like what has been said. Every 4 hours in business, for example, you need probably 8 hours of preparation. A lot of hard work, a lot of burning the midnight oil and all that. So it's about getting your mindset ready. You have to be really hands-on. Apart from that, to address and the question for that gentleman earlier about funding, especially if, apart from money from your own savings and from your family and your relatives, it's quite impossible. It just doesn't happen in Malaysia just yet. You can't get a loan from the bank and all that. But if you are about to involve yourself in an F&B business and you are not too sure of it, especially if you don't have a strong product line, consider franchising. Consider licensing. It's at least it has at least a good system for your investors to back up on. So with that said, what is the most important thing to take home tonight is know your why. The very reason why you want to start up your F&B, and be very passionate about it. Thank you.
Are there any auditors in the house? Oh, seriously, no. Oh man. Okay. It's quite surprising because PwC is just nearby. Anyway, I did 4 months at PwC, and I have to say I thank them for the long hours because it did help me get through in an F&B, and you gotta learn how to adapt to that. Long hours is a given in F&B. Second part is that right, make sure you do your homework properly and don't be deceived by a lot of things that you see out there, in a sense where if you go in a restaurant in Bangsa and you spend a lot of money, it looks nice and everything, picks up on social media, trending and everything, 6 months down the road you go there, you sit down, okay, see the crowd do the numbers, okay, don't be deceived by, oh, because it's talk of the town, it should work, okay. One thing about F&B, I tell you, it's the easiest to figure out the numbers. You can just walk to cold storage, you calculate everything that they use, you minus off 10%, it's probably the supplier's price. Okay. And do the selling price, staff cost, whatever, you just average out. It's very easy to count. Okay. So make sure you do your homework. Okay? Seriously, there's nothing behind F&B, apart from the recipe stuff, of course. But yeah, in terms of numbers, don't be deceived by that. And lastly, I think is very important is you face 2 phases. Phase 1 is starting up your product validation, how to get your product out there, okay? How you can handle the demand and stuff like that. Phase 2 is the most important one. How do you get not the F&B burn at phase 2? Is that you gotta make sure you do a good hiring at the start. Okay, build your core values, your team and all at the start. Because after phase 1, phase 2 is where your team is going to bring on phase 2 to phase 3. Okay, if you don't start building a team from the start, okay, a lot of habits and all will carry through, and you have a very challenging time to break through from phase 2 to phase 3. Okay, and sometimes startups fail. It's not because of wrong product. It could be either founders fall out, mismanage your money, or a bad team. Okay, so just take note of that.
I guess when it comes to starting up, I'd say before you dive right in, which is essentially what happens as soon as you decide, I'd suggest taking your time, kind of essentially the way we did. Just don't get caught up in hype of any number of trends that are coming up and all that kind of stuff. Just know your own capabilities. Don't start a business for family and friends, I guess, because you know you could serve up a rock on a plate and they'll say, "Oh, nice, huh?" it won't work out well for you that way. But you know, take as much time as you can to basically just think all the variables out before you make that dive, because as soon as you make that dive, everything has to be split decision, and that, like, you know, split second decisions at that point. Isn't it? You can't take like, oh, I need a week to think about it. There's no more time for you to think at that point. So as long as everything is, you know, you're being told that your product is solid and all that kind of stuff after all your testing and all that, then you know that's when you should essentially take your dive.
How not to get burnt, right? Just I think especially like the systems part, beyond everything else, it's accounting. You know, you make sure right from it's cash as it is. Everything is either you paying for something or you receiving something for your making. So you right from the beginning, you need to have that all sorted out. You can't ever neglect that, not even for a week. You're like, well, okay, I'll sort out my receipts next week. No, you'll forget it. I don't know. But as for all these other rules, you know, like basically, if you stick to certain rules too much, also, and you're not able to accommodate what's coming, that's what's going to kill you. Also, just don't get too emotional about stuff as well. I guess that's the whole family and friends thing also, you know, they pamper you, you get really just emotional and stuff. Just brace yourself. Yeah, I guess one of the things that the first thing that we did when we were thinking of starting out was that we wanted to be sure that we had good people around us, and that was why I started this off with Hyland, who's my high school friend. And I think trust was mentioned before. You need to be able to trust your partners and the people that you're dealing with, so that's very important. Secondly, the product that you have. I strongly believe that you need to believe in your product. You need to know that it's the top quality product that you can produce, the best that you can produce. And if you're not going to be able to consume it yourself, please don't put it out there. I think as with a lot of food trends, you see people jumping on the bandwagon when there is a hype. But you know, the hype comes and goes. You need to know that your product is good enough, and when a product is good enough, people will catch on to it. So, and I mean that's on top of things like accounting and whatnot. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Chiun, Noreen, Tabi, Kiat, and John. I would like to personally thank each and every one of our panelists for dedicating their time away from their kitchen and be here with us tonight instead. I'm pretty sure by the end of tonight's rise, we are able to come up with a book, How Not to Get Your Enemy Startup Burn for Dummies. And yeah, probably we're gonna post it up on our Facebook page for sale. Yeah. So before I conclude this event, I would like to pass the floor back to Arif.
Thank you, Adizo. Well, that was intense and some really great tips over there. Quickly, I just want to give a small shout out to Rockin' Tulips. Are you guys here? Rockin' Tulips? Alright, so if for you guys who didn't know, Rockin' Tulips are the guys who brought in Foodgasm Fest to you guys. So, those people are amazing. They're really